In this video, we're going to be doing a 4-level sentence analysis of this sentence from the MCT Level 6 4 Practice curriculum. This is a 4-level analysis video, which means we're going to be looking at all 4 levels of the sentence from parts of speech, then to parts of sentence, then to phrases, and finally to clauses. This is a more interesting sentence, and the sentence states, "He is superciliously asked whether his ancestors were fools." So we're going to start off with level 1 here, which is the parts of sentence, or parts of speech. And the parts of speech describe the function of each word in the sentence, basically how it's contributing to the sentence as a whole. So we're starting off here. For the level 1 on this first line here, our first word is he. This is a pronoun. It's not an adjective because it's not modifying anything. Sometimes his is a form of the pronoun that can be an adjective, but in this case, he is just a pronoun. In this case, it's not performing any other actions. It's just acting as a pronoun. Okay, so that's the first word. Next, we have is, which is a verb because it's showing an action. He is, that's something he's doing. It's a verb, it's an action that the pronoun is taking. Next we have superciliously. This is an adverb, and this adverb is modifying is. How is he doing it? It's doing it superciliously. It's modifying the action here of the verb is. That's the adverb. Next we have asked, which is a verb. It's another action that's being taken. He is asked. That's something that this pronoun is doing. We then have whether, and this one's a little bit weird because it's a strange part of speech that's not seen in this context very often. And what this word is doing, this is a conjunction. It's separating two parts of the sentence from each other. Now we're going to see this more in detail when we move on down to the level 4, or the clauses later, but for now, this is a conjunction because it's separating two central ideas of the sentence. It's separating he is superciliously asked, and then the sentence goes into a phase describing what he was asked, whether his ancestors were fools. So whether is kind of like separating or dividing two parts of the sentence. That's why it's a conjunction. That's what a conjunction does. That's a more interesting word right there. And his is an adjective because it's describing whose ancestors was it? It was his ancestors. That's the ancestors, the noun. So his is modifying the noun ancestors. That's how it's an adjective. Then were, we have a verb here. Were is taking the action again, just like with is or asked. Ancestors were, that's describing the action that the ancestors were taking. And finally, we have fools. That's a noun. That's the thing in this case. A fool is just a noun. So then we have level 2, which in this case, the parts of sentence. This is a more complex sentence when it comes to level 2, because we have two subject-predicate pairs, because we have two actions being described. The first subject-predicate pair, on the left here, is the first clause. He is the subject. That's the thing that's going to be taking all the action. Subject can be either a noun or pronoun, and he is a pronoun, so we're all good there. We then look for the verb. It could be either is or asked. So we can try asked and see if it works out. You can say he asked, but he is not the one doing the asking. He's being asked. So it makes sense that not just asked, but is superciliously asked is going to be the entire AVP in this case, not just this one over here. So it's the entire thing. He is superciliously asked. That is the main predicate there. It's describing the complete action that is being taken upon the pronoun he in this case. So we've got our second subject predicate set over here on the second clause. We've got a pretty clear noun and verb here. We've got ancestors were. Ancestors is the subject. And were is the LVP because the unlinking verb predicate in this case, it's linking together the subject and the subject complement, which in this case is fools. It's serving as the equal sign in a sort of equation where you've got ancestors equals fools, where the were is like serving as the equal sign. So that's how that works. This is the parts of sentence, which is completed. And now we're going to be moving on to the parts, the phrases. This is level 3. Now, we don't have any phrases whatsoever in this sentence. Now, no phrases at all. No prepositions at all, which means we have no prepositional phrases. And no infinitive phrases, because we don't have anything of the infinitive form. So we simply have no phrases in this sentence. It's perfectly normal for a sentence to have no phrases. They happen all the time. A sentence doesn't have to have 3 or 4 different phrases, so this is one of those sentences. All right, and finally, we have the final level, level 4, the clauses. And we've got 2 clauses in this sentence as a contrast to the usual one simple declarative. So this is going to be an independent clause on the left, starting from he is superciliously asked, and then all the way out to ancestors. So this is a rather strange sentence in terms of the clause structure. This isn't just a normal linear independent and dependent clause structure where both clauses are completely separate from each other. In this sentence, we have the independent clause spanning from he is superciliously asked all the way from he to ancestors. So we have, this is the independent clause. It's very strange, this sort of sentence. So we can test to see if this is really the independent clause. If we go ahead and just see if the part of the sentence that the independent clause is enveloping makes sense. So you can test, he is superciliously asked whether his ancestors were fools. So that works as the independent clause. You can then go through to the dependent clause, and you just find out, well, which part of the sentence contains the second subject-predicate pair, and which one doesn't make sense on its own. That's going to be whether his ancestors were fools. That doesn't make sense on its own, so that's going to be our dependent clause. So this is the dependent clause. So we have a dependent clause nested within the independent clause. So this is a stranger sentence than most, where we just have independent clauses and dependent clauses laid out side by side. So this is a very weird sentence structure. This is going to be an ID complex sentence because we've got 2 clauses, I and D, independent and dependent. There's no comma between them. They're only separated by the whether, and that's the conjunction here. So this is an ID complex sentence. Again, a sentence would be complex if there are 2 different clause types in it, such as independent and dependent, and it would be compound if there were 2 of the same clause types in it. So that's how clause types would work in that way. So we've completed analyzing this sentence. This was a much stranger one. We've got 2 clauses here, the complex sentence. We have no phrases. We've got a subject and predicate. He is superciliously asked. Then we have, and superciliously in this case means with a raised eyebrow or sarcastically, stems from the root super meaning over. And we've got a subject predicate, LVP and SC, on the second half of the sentence, ancestors equals fools. So that's this sentence right here from MCT's Level 6 4 Practice 2's 4-level sentence analysis curriculum. And this was a complete analysis of this sentence.